Salutations everyone, welcome to another Good E-Reader video. My name is Michael.
My name of course is Peter.
Okay, so Peter, we've been covering the e-reader sector since like 2008.
Yes.
So right when the second generation Kindle had just come out.
Yep.
And this was before Kobo started making e-readers, started selling ebooks, before Barnes & Noble got into it. Really kind of, we've been there since almost the very beginning.
Yes.
You know, the first early Sony e-readers, the first early Kindles, and then we've seen like the total rise of the industry. So we've seen a lot of third-party companies come to the scene, like Pocketbook, like Onyx Books,
Icarus, Wexler.
For sure. So we've seen a lot of companies come, and we've seen a lot of companies go. So we have a unique perspective in this, and the premise of today's video is what would constitute the ultimate e-reader. So out of everything that we've seen over the years, if there was a singular device packing everything that was amazing, what would this device look like? How much would it cost? What type of features would it have?
Right.
So I have a small list, and we're just basically going to wrap back and forth talking about what we think the ultimate e-reader should have. So first of all,
start it off.
Let's talk about size.
Right.
I'm a big fan of 6 inches.
Yep.
And a lot of people would say, and a lot of people have commented to me saying like, look, you know, I need something bigger. 6 inches isn't going to cut it. How big do you actually need? I think 6 inches is perfect because it's pocket friendly.
Portable.
And in terms of making the ultimate e-reader affordable, I think that 6 inches, because it's the standard, it's so much easier as a starting point, because every Chinese or Taiwanese OEM has 6-inch like cases at super cheap prices. So you could start with 6 inches and pack all these amazing features into it and not break the bank.
Yes.
What do you think?
I think 6 inches is the best overall average size that everyone goes for, because evidently everyone goes for it. I think having size options would be good though, like what Kobo did with their 6-inch Aura and then the 6.8-inch Aura HD. I think having size options would allow you to have the same amount of features. You can put all the great stuff we're going to talk about in a 6-inch, but you can also offer, like many companies do, like Icarus, a 6.8, an 8, and a 9.7. But I think if we had to choose just one, 6-inch would be the way to go. Yeah. Okay,
so in terms of resolution, e-readers have come a long way. Right. I remember when we were like 800 by 600 was the norm.
That was the stuff right there.
And now like it's like 1028 by 768, and now we've seen even better resolution come in the form of the new Kindle Voyage, which is 1430 by 1080, which is a benchmark. It actually has 300 ppi, and I really think that high resolution makes a huge difference because of the font clarity and the overall screen performance. You're buying an e-reader to read, and if things are like lo-fi and if you jack like the font size up and it gets pixelated, it's not indicative to a great experience. So I would probably say 300 ppi and 1430 by 1080 would be the most optimal resolution, because whether you're reading graphic novels, manga, newspapers, magazines, or just an ebook, the fonts and the resolution are absolutely gonna pop. What do you think?
I have no contrary feelings towards that. I agree entirely. The bigger the resolution, the better. I mean, if it does come down to you wanting to go full-size text, I mean, it'll just end up being blurry on lower resolution screens. So,
and we've seen a lot of that over the years.
Yeah. So this is a case of the bigger the resolution, the better screen's gonna be.
Okay, there's a lot of different e-paper tech out there. There's like Miracell. There is you know, the tech that Amazon bought from Samsung, Liquid Vista. We have, you know, the stuff that Plastic Logic has been making, the stuff that Pixel Qi has made. Bridgestone got involved in the e-paper space and then quickly abandoned it. There's a lot of e-paper tech out there. There's even color e-reader tech out there with Triton 1 and 2.
Yeah, we've all seen how great that was.
There's a lot of different options out there. What would be the best? Well, I'm a huge fan of what Sony and E Ink did together called Mobius, and this is quite evident right here with the Sony digital paper, which is 13.3 inches, and the upcoming Pocketbook CAD reader, which is also 13.3 inches, has Mobius, but no other really e-readers to date have this. Now, what the head of R&D at E-Ink told me was that with Mobius, we're seeing a lot of large screen e-readers use this, but they can actually cut the e-paper to whatever size that people actually want.
Right.
It's not locked into large screen devices. They can cut it to 6 inches if you want, and it doesn't exponentially increase the cost. But we're starting to see larger e-readers have Mobius because it's, well, for one, it's weighs 50% less than the equivalent glass-based TFT, and this is particularly important for mobile products. So having a 6-inch Mobius reader, if you have the digital paper right here and you have the Kindle Voyage, the Voyage actually weighs more in a 6-inch shell than the 13.3-inch Sony e-reader has in a 13.3-inch shell. So having a 6-inch e-reader that weighs less than this does would just make it more pocket friendly, which would make it easier to transport, would take less damage if you just threw it in a bag with a whole bunch of other things, just because its footprint is ridiculously small.
Mobius is flexible too.
It is.
So,
so what do you think?
I've always been a fan of Mobius. I think having the screen flexible but not the device flexible is a lot better, because having the screen flexible means if you rest something on it or you accidentally hit it, it's not going to bust and shatter. It's not necessary to have the device flexible like the Wexler Flex 1, because then you're just going to be wanting to flex it, and then you're just going to ruin it. And because all the circuitry and everything hasn't caught up to the screen itself, so there's going to have to be a part of an e-reader where you can never truly bend it where the batteries are, the circuit boards are. So yeah, I'd say Mobius is the way to go for at least my ultimate vision of an e-reader.
Okay. We've seen a lot of e-readers use infrared technology, and this was mainly what e-readers used before capacitive became the norm. You've had a lot of Kindles in the past, up until really the Kindle Voyage, that had a small dip between the screen and where the bezel started. So the screens were always sunken in, and that's because it was using IR touch, which really made pinching and zooming a struggle, which actually made any type of PDF interaction not that easy. And that's why a lot of e-readers really had to use like reflow, like Sony did. They really relied on reflow in order to make a good PDF experience. But now with capacitive touch screens, you basically have the same type of tech that you do on your iPad, where the screen's flush with the bezel. It's easy to pinch and zoom. It's super responsive. Even with phones, it's super easy because, you know, all these devices, there's no dip. And so switching from a phone to an e-reader with a capacitive screen, like say the Kindle Voyage, everything's super flush, or the Tolino Vision 2, the Kobo Aura, they're all screen flush with the bezel. So I think that having the screen flush with the bezel, whether it's capacitive touch or not, I think is critically important, because you don't want to have a barrier to tech. You want people to be able to switch from a tablet to the e-reader, switch from a phone to an e-reader, and to have like everything kind of look and function the same. The same type of interactions that you're used to in a tablet should transcend to an e-reader. But just like there's 3 companies that are actually doing it, and everyone else isn't.
That's right. 2 comments on that. I think whatever type of touchscreen you have, you must have a flush screen and bezel. Like Mike said, if you have a dip, there's things like on the menu bar that you can't touch sometimes. And we've tried on certain devices. We're like, I can't. It's not registering.
It's too close to the bezel.
There's no, the touch box is like, I can't touch it. Things like screenshotting, stuff like that. But no, I think capacitive is the way to go. IR is very limiting. Capacitive, if you go from this or this or this or this, it's going to be all the same. You're going to be able to do this gesture, capacitive is the way to go.
Yeah, I think like Barnes & Noble Nook, their entire e-ink product line has all used IR touch. And it's like, it's cheaper to use that tech than it is to use capacitive, but you got to think about what would make the ultimate e-reader. It's not certainly sometimes the cheapest components. It's being able to offer like the best user experience. There's a lot of talk in the e-reader industry with reading in the dark frontlit displays.
Right.
The Sony digital paper does not have a glow light.
No, it does
but
not.
That certainly does not provide a barrier for people to use, because the whole point with this is you're bringing it on a job site, you're bringing it in the office, you're bringing it to places that are well lit.
Right.
In other cases with commercial e-readers, you want to be able to read in all environmental
Absolutely.
conditions and not have to invest in a reading light or a case in a reading light, but some people love that sort of tech. So what's your preference in terms of glow lights, the inclusion of frontlit displays, how far frontlit displays have come? What are your thoughts?
I think having a front light is necessary on, excluding this, of course, because like Mike said, you're always going to be in an office environment. But yeah, having a front light is absolutely necessary. We all saw what happened when Sony released their T1, didn't have a front light. Then everyone else started releasing front lights. T2 came out, no front light. T3 came out, still no front light. Everyone's like, what are you guys doing? There's no front light.
They actually shipped it in a case with a light.
With a light, yeah.
Into it.
Exactly. So, no, a front light is absolutely necessary. I think you're very limiting if you don't put a front light on your device, because obviously the day gets dark and you might be in a room with less light and you just won't straight up be able to use your e-reader if there's no light. So.
Yeah, and you got to think too, like a lot of people have a spouse and they're going to bed.
Yeah.
And if you have like the lamp on or a big reading light on, it could disturb them.
Or even a backlit device that goes bzzz and lights up the whole room, whereas this has a very fine, controllable level of light that will just illuminate your page and nothing else.
Yeah, see, if for those of you that are uncertain on what frontlit technology means, LCD screens, whether it's a phone, whether it's a tablet, they all have light emitting from behind the screen into your eyes.
Yeah.
And statistically, that's been known to cause melatonin suppression, which basically makes it so if you're staring at a computer screen for more than like 2 hours at a time, it actually suppresses it, which means that a lot of people who play video games, who are staring at screens, whether it's tablets, whether it's phones, they find themselves going to bed later than people that are not looking at screens.
Don't tell me this. What do you think we do all day?
Well, but that's sometimes why I'm staying up to 3-4 in the morning,
Right,
because
right.
I physically can't sleep because I've been staring at screens all day, and eventually I just get so tired that I just pass out. And
Right.
I mean, I'm not alone in that. A lot of
Yeah.
people are keeping later hours now thanks to devices like tablets and smartphones and reading and playing games before you go to bed. It's harder to go to bed, whereas with frontlit displays, the light does not come from behind the screens. There's usually LED lights at the bottom that splash lights
Yep.
upwards, and so the screen's illuminated, but it's not shining into your eyes. It's just evenly illuminating
Yep.
the screen.
Right.
So for everything that Peter said, I'm in total agreement
Mm-hmm.
with frontlit displays. What about like when it comes to gimmicks?
Here we go.
We see flexible rubber housing. We see that in this and the Pocketbook CAD,
Right.
where it's like, or the Wexler Flex One using the LG
Yeah,
screen.
yeah.
They bend and they have some sort of give, some sort of torque. We also see that the new Kindle Voyage has a hybrid magnesium alloy on the back of it, which was designed to have less oil from your fingers, from your hands, get onto the screen. So when it comes down to it, it's becoming less oily. Now, do you see the Ultimate e-reader, Peter, having, do you think that having flexibility, or do you think that having gimmicks like the hybrid magnesium alloy, do you think this is important?
I think that's just going to take away from the features that people actually want. I think that having put all this money into, we have this awesome magnesium composite backing with piano finish, this and that. Well, you spent so much money doing that. What about the features people want? Like, maybe I wanted audio on this, maybe I wanted a glow light on this, but you spent so much money on all these other things that aren't too important. A lot of people look at the back and go, oh cool, Amazon, and then look at their e-reader. That's it. They're not going to be staring at the back all day and go, oh, this is amazing, I'm going to try scratching it and all that. I think having all these bells and whistles aren't as important as giving people the things they want, which is why every time we meet up, we're always talking about, man, this e-reader is lacking this, but it has it on that. But but it doesn't have it on that, which is why we're talking about the Ultimate e-reader.
Yeah. Okay, so most e-readers on the market, let's talk about like processors and internals for a few minutes. You know, between 400 and 600 megahertz is the norm. From time to time, we might see an e-reader with like a 1 gigahertz processor, but that's really rare. How much processing power do you think the Ultimate e-reader would have? I'm thinking it needs at least a 1.2 gigahertz dual-core processor. There's only one e-reader on the market that currently has that. I think it's an Onyx or a Pocketbook, one of the newest ones that have it.
The latest Onyx, yeah.
So a lot of people think, what does processing power really do? Well, it's a lot like RAM, where it will allow you to do more things quicker. Page turns are quicker, depending on the e-paper that you're using, accessing menu functions. If you're accessing really anything in the UI, opening up the store, opening up this and opening up that, it's quick because with the more RAM that you have, more things are able to be buffered into the RAM memory, and with the processor function in conjunction with higher amounts of RAM, your performance dramatically increases. It's like if you have a 1 gigahertz netbook versus like you know, an 8-core computer. You know, you're really gonna notice a huge jump in performance and being able to do more things, and it look good without things becoming sluggish. And we've certainly seen more e-readers than we care to that suffer from lack of RAM, lack of processor, but everything else looks really good. You know, like you could tell they put a lot of time and effort into it, but they were scraping the bottom of the barrel when it came to CPU and RAM, which really diminished the overall experience. So we've seen good e-readers quickly turn bad because of lack of RAM and lack of processor.
I think even e-readers such as the Kindle Paperwhite 2, which is Kindle is the e-reader, and the Paperwhite 2 had everything down. It was perfect, it was flawless, and then it came to using PDFs, and it had a massive issue with that. Anything even the slightest bit bigger than say 20 MB would just crash because it didn't have enough RAM to utilize it. And we always talk about, doesn't matter the number of what the specs are and all that, but it kind of does sometimes. It does come down to how does it operate in real world conditions, but it kind of does matter what you put into it, because even the Paperwhite can't handle big PDFs.
It's
and
true.
That is a problem.
And if a flagship Amazon e-reader can't handle it, the ultimate
what does that say about
the ultimate e-reader should have at least 1 gig of RAM, I think. Whereas the average e-reader has 128 MB or 512. That's about the standard. I think you need at least a gig in order to take advantage of other things that we're going to talk about in a second here. Let's talk about SD. We've seen a lot of Kindle e-readers forego an SD card because they rely on the cloud.
Yeah, I think every other Kindle except the first gen Kindle didn't have an SD card.
Right. Yeah. And more companies these days are foregoing SD cards because they want you to buy ebooks from their company, and they know that if there's an SD card then there, users are more likely to download their own pirated books on the internet, load them on a device. The more ebooks that people are getting on their own are the less ebooks that people are actually buying through the company that's actually integrating their bookstore on it. So how important, Peter, is an SD on an e-reader?
People like things that give you a lot of flexibility to do things like that. That's a reason people like Android. It's very customizable. You know, they don't lock you out of expanding the memory. They don't lock you out of sideloading your things in. I think having an SD card, pretty much every company out there that make e-readers, majority of them have SD cards. Third-party ones, even the main guys like Sony's and Kobo's, they all have SD cards. So I think personally that I would like to see some sort of expandable memory on my device, because then I won't have to worry about, do I buy the 2 gig version if there are versions? Do I buy the 4 gig version? If I buy 2, I'm going to have to store my books and download them when I need them. It's just a lot more of a hassle.
A lot of tablets are like that, like say the iPads for instance.
Yeah, you have
never
to
use
buy
SD, but it's like if you the 16 gig is cheap, but if you want to go to like a 32 gig, the price increases by like $150, whereas you can just get like a a 64 gig SD card for like 30 or 40 bucks.
Exactly, and then you don't always have to worry, because I think the Kindle Paperwhites were what, 2 or 4 gigs each, but by the time all the user stuff was out of the way, you only got one.
The operating system.
Yeah. So I think an SD card is crucial.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at it this way. Not everybody lives in an area where Wi-Fi is available, where you can purchase new ebooks, have them sync to the device, delete a book, download some past purchases. A lot of the world doesn't live in Wi-Fi, and an SD card does allow you to preload a bunch of content in and then sit on a beach for 2 weeks, or go to your summer home for like a month that doesn't have Wi-Fi and still be able to read and not think that, okay, I had 5 books on my devices, I read them all within 2 weeks, what now?
Right.
And then you have to like hunt around for a Wi-Fi spot. But that plays into my next thing about 3G, 4G. Amazon still does their WhisperSync service, which basically you can pay a little bit of extra money for a Kindle that has 3G internet access and you're not relying on a Wi-Fi network. Barnes & Noble's first generation e-reader had a similar service where you could access data, and the Sony Daily Edition had 3G.
The 950,
they had internet access, but they recently shut it off when they abandoned consumer e-readers and shut down their e-book store. After the first Nook e-reader came out, they shut that service off as well. Very few, those are basically the only companies that ever really got involved in an e-reader with like capabilities for a SIM card. My view is that because the world is not as connected as we think it is. You know, especially once you get out of like a very urban area and you're traveling from, you know, say like the US, it's connected by the interstate and everything is just so far spread out that you have no Wi-Fi for, you know, hundreds of miles, and you live in a place like Canada. All of our urban places are just pushed to the border of the states. You know, Vancouver, Toronto, all these big cities are basically just hugging the border of the states, which basically thousands of miles, there's like small cities, hamlets, and villages. A lot of them are not connected. They don't have Wi-Fi, and I think that the Ultimate e-reader has to have some sort of SIM card support, not necessarily providing the access for free like Amazon is, but giving customers the option to be able to get a small SIM for like 100 megs of data, which is like enough to download like 100 books, you know,
do you think that's necessary though? Do you think there should be 2 versions?
I think it is.
So you think they should kind of force the 3G down your throat whether you want it or
well
not?
It's providing the option like an SD card, you know. Because there's an SD card doesn't mean that you have to buy an SD card and use it, but for the types of people that want to use it, it's there. Same with the SIM cards. Like, we're not, you know, the Ultimate e-reader is not giving you the service when you buy it. It's basically saying if you want to take the SIM out of your phone and put it in there, you can.
So it's like you don't have to buy the more expensive 3G version.
It's like,
if you need to put a SIM card, there's a little slot you go like
exactly.
that. That's
so
good.
it's basically just giving the users more options, that if they want to put a data SIM in there and pay like $10 a month from their current ISP, they can. But for the people that don't really care about that are happy with their Wi-Fi, for sure, go for gold. But at least having more options is better. And how much does putting like a SIM card on like a device actually cost?
Probably nothing.
Okay, let's talk about audio.
Oh, jeez.
Audio is a lost art in e-readers.
I think so.
There was a time where every e-reader had audio. It had like WMV, it had MP3, Wave, some had FLAC for lostness. For about like a 3-year window period, audio was the norm. And then suddenly what happened is these e-readers that used to cost $359, $399, $299 came down in price to $75, to $129, to $99. To me, the e-reader industry right now is in a spiral for the race to the bottom. How could you make an e-reader cheap enough that you could sell and not take a loss and charge $99 or $129 for it? And a lot of people were like, well, we'll sacrifice audio because it was an unnecessarily expense. We don't sell audiobooks. We're not making any money off the audio. We can sell an e-reader like $20 cheaper by not having audio. But since the whole industry has adopted the race to the bottom model, we suddenly have no e-readers, or like there's a handful, but they're like these third-party readers that have
ones
it.
that just don't work very well.
Yeah, or like that are certainly not household names, that have no availability in Western Europe or in North America.
Yeah.
It's the type of e-readers where if we were to mention them to you, you would have like no idea who these companies
Exactly,
are.
yeah.
And that's, I think, one of the big determinants. You hear about e-readers in schools, but you never see them because the National Federation of the Blind basically puts the kibosh on anybody wanting to put e-readers in schools because it alienates people with dyslexia, people who have vision problems, near farsighted, they can't use, or are totally blind. You can't use an e-reader like that, but you can sometimes use a tablet like that.
Yes, you can.
So I think critically, e-readers need to adapt audio because people are listening to audiobooks. Audiobooks is like a $1.8 billion industry as
Right.
of 2013. More audiobooks are produced. Like in 2013, I think somewhere like 20,000 new audiobooks were produced. In 2014, 29,000 audiobooks were
Right.
produced. So it's a figure that's dramatically increasing. Audiobooks, everyone's getting involved in it. Barnes & Noble just
Yep.
unveiled their Nook audiobook service. Kobo's toying around with the idea of an audiobook service. Amazon has pioneered Audible for about like 6 years before anyone else got involved in it. One of the companies that are big in the audiobook space right now is Findaway World, and their audiobook solution is basically powering libraries.
Yeah.
So 3M, Baker & Taylor, if your library is offering audiobooks, usually it's via Findaway World. And so they're partnering with like everyone in order to make audiobooks more accessible. But e-readers don't have the ability to listen to audiobooks, which means you're buying a reading device that by its very nature is not letting you listen to the audio
I know.
versions.
I think this is a prime example of what we were talking about 3 or 4 sections back about gimmicks. I think this is $199 retail.
Yeah.
Before they reduce the price and try to undercut everybody. I think if they got rid of the backing, which was this magnesium metal combination, that could have saved some money. I think if they didn't have these side buttons that have all this, not the fact that they have side buttons, but the fact that there are vibrators in the side, like a cell phone when you have a text come in, that supply haptic feedback. I think that's really unnecessary because people aren't going to question if they've pressed the side. They don't need the screen to flash, things to change, their finger to touch, and haptic feedback for them to say, did I do it right? They only would need, e-readers have always had physical page turn buttons way back when. So I think if they got rid of all these little bells and whistles and things they think people want and just gave people what they want, like audio, that would be a lot better because the Kindle Touch was awesome. It had stereo speakers, so it had external audio. It had headphone jack, meaning it had onboard sound as well. That was one of my favorite e-readers, the Kindle Touch. And I think having audio would be amazing because Amazon Fire tablets sure take advantage of audio.
They do.
I mean, they're amazing. They can synchronize where you've last read. They're voiced by professionals, people in the industry. I think audio is. I think it's a mistake that they don't have them on e-readers.
Yeah, I mean, here's some of the things that could be accomplished using cheap tech if you were to have audio and e-readers. For instance, you'd have to be able to have a microphone.
Yeah.
So with more e-readers these days are running Android as
Onyx,
a vanilla.
Icarus, yeah.
That's been if there's been any big trend of 2014, it's been the mad adoption of Android, more particularly vanilla Android, as an avenue for people to not be locked into any one ecosystem, but being able to install whatever reading app that they want, whether it's an indie app like Moon Plus Reader or Deco, or whether it's like a mainstream outlet like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo. You have the freedom to install what you want. I think with a microphone, you'll be able to actually do Skype audio calls, and you'll be able to do microphone WhatsApp greeting messages. The possibilities are endless, but I could see it being taken one step further by having Ivana text-to-speech, where you could actually have the books being narrated to you. So people who do have reading problems, vision problems, could actually have the book being narrated to you either through the speakers or through the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. Going one step further, I would like to see the Ultimate e-reader be able to have voice interactions done with the mic, and so you could say, if you are blind, you can say
open book,
you know, open book,
yeah,
or
which book do you want,
yeah,
Michael?
Yeah, exactly. or say like you know, browse for World War Z audiobook.
Yeah.
World War Z audiobook was found,
Yeah.
$29.99. Would you like to purchase? You say yes. It purchases the book for you through your credit card that you left on file with the audio.
Yeah.
So, you know, 4520 blah blah blah.
Right.
And suddenly an e-reader is accessible to people who are handicapped or have vision issues, because it becomes a device that it could interact with you through the mic, through the audio, and actually have a text-to-speech reading these things back to you, and you being able to interact with the device. So, you know, and so saying things like that, I mean, audio is just freaking critical.
And I mean, it's not like it's gonna make the e-reader $200, because
that's all software.
Yeah, because e-readers can be $200 now, so it's not like the Kindle Touch with all these features was $200. So it's like, I don't think there's much of an excuse not to have audio on there.
Yeah.
I mean, components, when you're producing things in this much quantity like Amazon does, I'm pretty sure having onboard sound is not going to break the bank and make your e-reader $400.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about other gimmicks like a camera? You know, we saw one camera, the Pocketbook Ultra had a camera on it.
Unnecessary.
Tablets, phones, they all have camera on it. Do you think the Ultimate e-reader needs a camera?
You can't make an e-reader a tablet. We've seen it being tried with certain screen technologies, Triton. You know, people just get confused when they see things like that. And having a camera on an e-reader is very frustrating. It's very blurry. When you take a picture, it takes forever. If you move, the exposure's open too long, and it ends up just looking like garbage.
But having a dual-core processor and 1 gig of RAM...
You know what? I've never seen that with the camera yet, so I don't know. But as it stands with what we've currently seen in the market, like we've said, that has that doesn't have that, etc. I think having a camera on it would just be unnecessary and a little bit too much, because then why not go a step further and put this or that and that and this and everything tablets have, you know, like,
you know,
HDMI outs and stuff like that.
I could honestly see, if you have a high enough processor and enough RAM, a camera could work. But, you know, okay, so here are the things I'd like to see. I'd like to see, if you take a picture, the picture is an e-ink. So when you export it to your computer, it's an e-ink photo.
But it wasn't on the Ultra,
right?
Yeah,
it was like this,
normal,
you know, one megapixel camera,
washed out.
Yeah,
colors,
whereas like the final product was crazy.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see an e-ink picture. But think about it this way. If it has a camera and your e-reader is always with you, you could scan a QR code and buy that book from the bookstore digitally.
That does open a lot of things up if you did have that.
You know, indie authors could make QR codes and put them like on a book thing, or you know, tell someone about a book, you put your e-reader there, and automatically you're downloading like the free copy from Smashwords.
Yeah.
I think that a camera on an e-reader could open up a new world of opportunities for instant downloads. I know in Poland and Russia, one of the big things right now are free ebook QR codes on the subway, on the trolleys, where you could actually get a revolving cadre of books being offered every month, where you just take your phone, you scan it, it gets downloaded to the phone. But who enjoys reading on their phone? More people particularly love reading on their e-reader, so why not put your e-reader, scan a QR code, click download, within a second it's downloaded to your device and you can actually read on your e-reader. Because most people who are commuting on the subway, on a trolley, on the tram, whether you're taking like those crazy maglev trains in Japan, you know, people are reading while they're commuting, and if you have the option to instantly like download a free book with the e-reader that's in your hands anyways, why not?
Could be cool.
So
could be cool.
That's what I think. What about things like Bluetooth and GPS? Do you think an e-reader could benefit from any of that?
I think Bluetooth could be cool
because one of the big limitations on this is that the Sony Digital Papers has no Bluetooth support.
No wireless
so
connectivity.
you can't like connect up like a Bluetooth keyboard and read sheet music by like, you know, having a little touchscreen thing where you can just flip a page.
I think Bluetooth would be cool. I'm not sure about GPS. I don't know how relevant having a GPS locator would be. I mean, I guess if you have a Google Play certified device, you could track, you know, your whereabouts like you do on your phone. I guess when you sign into like Yelp or Urban Spoon, it would say, hey, these restaurants are
Google
close
Maps.
to you. Yeah, I suppose so. I don't know how many people are going to be reaching for their e-reader to look at a map when they could just reach for their phone for that. I'd say yes to Bluetooth for wireless connectivity to certain devices, but no to GPS. That's me, though.
Well, I think, you know, the costs of Bluetooth and GPS chips, because of the mass adoption in phones and tablets, have certainly come down. I think they've come down low enough that you could actually put in an e-reader. I think the GPS is important in an e-reader with two different ways. For one, you could have anti-theft software. So because e-readers are so pocket friendly, a lot of people lose them, or maybe you'll resell it and forget to wipe your device. So being able to remotely wipe your device, I think, would be important, as well as like a Find My Ultimate e-reader option where you could basically say, you know, I lost at the park. Where is it? And then you could just like look it up on your phone and like track the whereabouts of your e-reader.
That would be cool. Yeah.
You know, so I think that's it. So you've listened to our ideas on what would constitute the ultimate e-reader. We've talked for a good 40 minutes.
Yes.
On this sort of thing.
Watched the whole thing.
Yeah. So hopefully you've stuck around. If not, anyways, drop a comment below and let us know exactly what you think. And if you have anything that we missed, or do you think that you agree or disagree with any of the points that we made, or if you have thoughts of your own, drop a comment below. We'll endeavor to answer each and every one of you. For GoodEreader.com, my name is Michael.
This is Peter.
Everybody take care.
This is what I was drawing. If you guys notice, Luigi is 6 feet under because he's lived in Mario's shadow forever. And that's ultimately his fate.
Stupid Luigi.
Poor Luigi.